Hello everyone, so this is my second update on the Saga Age of Magic challenge that I'm participating in. Got a few more bits and pieces done, and more importantly than that, I've kind of got a plan now as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So first up, there are two Palace Guard in front of you that I've completed. Now, initially, I thought I didn't really have enough variation in figures to make up any units of Palace Guard to represent my Hearth Guard. There are really only three poses, these two and one other, which is an archer, which would have to go into a separate unit to be a sort of bow-armed unit. So I was planning on printing up some figures from another file that I purchased from Titan Forge via my mini factory. That's proved a little bit of a disaster though, really, because there are a lot more variations in the figures, but they are all multi-part, and they all require supports in order to be able to print them up. And in a lot of cases, the supports are actually stronger than the parts that you're trying to print. So when you try and disconnect them from the supports, you can easily sort of damage the weapons and so on that you're trying to print. And another curious thing I just don't understand at all is that as far as I can see, all the shields are being held in the right hand, with some of the weapons but not all of them being carried in the left. So I can understand, introducing a number of left-handed figures into the collection, but you have to basically, in order to represent a right-handed figure with a shield, you have to reverse the file before you print it out, which just adds to the time and the frustration of the whole thing. So I've kind of given up on that and decided that, in fact, it doesn't matter if I do have a number of copies of these figures, particularly the one that's carrying the, whatever it is, pole arm or whatever, by his side with the shield, because he almost looks like he's on guard, literally on guard or something like that. So it won't matter too much if they do appear to be all in the same pose in formation. So I'm going to print a lot of these up and paint them. The other advantage of that is I mentioned with the ones that the other group that I'd purchased, they all needed supports. These figures don't need supports, so they're actually limited because of that in terms of the detail that can be put on them and the dynamism of the pose. If you actually look at these figures, I appreciate that the turntable's rotating at the moment, so it won't be too easy to imagine, but if you take any point on the base of the figure, you can follow a line upwards towards the top of the model, towards the head or the point of the weapon, and you never have to kind of take an angle back down again. If you did, say for instance, if the cloak flowed outwards and then downwards, then you would need a support for that. So it does kind of limit you, and it limits you as well in terms of the depth of the detail, because the figure carrying the scimitar, just as he turns around with his back to the camera, you'll see that on his waist he's carrying a scabbard. Now that scabbard almost looks like it's melted into the figure. If it were proud of the figure and pointing outwards, then that would be a case in point where it wouldn't print unless you had given it a support. So very easy to print, but it does kind of constrain what you can print, you know, and the depth of the detail on the figures. But I think they're nice enough figures. I'm happy with the way they've turned out, and I'll be able to bash out a couple of units of those, adding to my points in this faction. Right, on to the next thing. Right, now this guy has got a name in the files. He's called Prince Alu. I don't think that's a reference to any particular character in the Arabian Nights. Maybe it is. I haven't read the entire volume yet, but anyway, he is going to represent a lieutenant in my warband. So I think in order to acquire him, I have to spend 2 Hearthguard. So he's kind of worth half a point, as it were. He's on a flying carpet, which I thought was a nice Arabian Nights touch, so he'll be able to fly around the battlefield. Haven't really explored the rules too much yet, too in depth, to be able to tell you what the strengths or the advantages of having a lieutenant in your warband are, but definitely wanted to get him painted up, and haven't actually glued him down to the flying carpet. He's just a sort of seated figure, because in the files there is actually a rather splendid elephant, so I might at some stage get that printed up, and I can transfer into that if I wanted to. But for the purposes of this challenge, he's going to be seated on a flying carpet. Now, I did mention in the last video that it was a bit frustrating in that the Saga rules don't allow characters to mount and dismount and so on, because I have got a model that I painted up, I'm going to show you now, of this character standing, not on the carpet. So I'll just switch to that. Okay, so here he is, dismounted from the carpet. So he's usable on foot as well. The reason I was a little bit frustrated though is that there is a model of the carpet actually animated. So it would be possible with another set of rules to actually have the carpet acting independently, and whereas you might think that's a little bit odd, the carpets can be quite aggressive in their own right, and I'll show you what I mean now by showing you this model of the carpet. Right, here we are then. This is what I mean. As you can see, the carpet's kind of upright, and it's quite cleverly done. One end of the carpet has got the sort of tassels representing the feet, and the other 2 tassels above look like sort of outstretched arms, or even like fists in boxing gloves or something like that. So I could actually use the carpet as a as a figure in its own right, so it would be nice to be able to separate the two and have them still both participating in the game, but it's not possible. But anyway, I've got it painted up. Not too happy with this model anyway, in that the pattern on it is different from the carpet that's actually flying, and it's not at all sort of, or not as symmetrical a pattern as the other one, and it's sort of the way I've painted it up, it looks sort of far too busy anyway, so maybe it's just as well that I'm probably not going to be able to use it. Okay, and then this is the last piece that I've got to show you today. Painted up another one of the genie. This is the fire genie, or fire djinn. Yeah, pretty pleased with the way it's turned out, and my plan, I now have a plan for the genies as well. What I'm going to do is paint up all 4 of them. So there's earth, wind, fire and water. So far I've shown you the wind already, and this is the fire. And in the rules for the Great Kingdoms, you're allowed to have what's called a conclave. which is a unit of 4 figures. They're meant to be Hearthguard, so in theory they should be on a slightly smaller base than this. And you use them as kind of sorcerers and conjurers, mages, so it's perfect for genies really. The only problem with that being that if I have a conclave, which is 3 points of expenditure, then I'm not allowed to have a sorcerer, and I do quite like that sorcerer figure I showed you last time. So what I'm going to do anyway is paint up over 8 points worth of figures, and then I can, you know, have various permutations of figures. So I'll have either 3 points of the conclave of genies or my sorcerer in the warband at any one time. Anyway, that's it. That's my update. More to come in the future. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.